It's about I gotta say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
Being able to run as he shoots the moon to the fans here in Green Bay.
That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss.
This is not Detroit, man. This is the Super Bowl.
People went for wild. People went for wild.
Here we go. Goff from the gun to the touchdown. And it's caught.
This is BS Sports.
And away we go on a rainy Tuesday evening here in mid-Michigan. Welcome to BS Sports on a big night for Detroit sports, specifically for the Red Wings. That's what we're going to start off with. I know the headline is March Madness, fun stuff, chaos, all sorts of crazy things have happened in March Madness. We're going to talk about it. We're going to break it down. We also got opening day this Thursday. So I'm going to talk about some storylines, some questions I have for some teams, some of my observation about the Tigers going into this season, as well as some just a smidgen of NFL stuff that has been going on, specifically with some of these rule changes. We're going to talk about it. A lot of this stuff is basically coming out the last couple of days here. But I have to start with the Red Wings just because they're playing right now. So first of all, a quick recap of their last week or so of games. They've won 3 out of their last 5, taking wins against the Islanders, against the Blue Jackets in overtime, which was a crazy win that they managed to get back, and then the Buffalo Sabres, all at home, though. They have not won a game on the road in the entire month of March. Right now, they're playing against a fellow playoff contender in the Washington Capitals, who currently hold that playoff spot ahead of them by a point, and they have a game in hand. Red Wings have played one more game so far in the season than the Capitals have, and then obviously that'll continue because they're playing each other. But best news of this whole struggle, I guess, is that Dylan Larkin is back. So we get Dylan Larkin back against the Islanders. We win that game 6-3. Sort of shut them down, shut down that threat. Now we got the Capitals. This time it's going to be on the road. It's a big challenge. It's a must-win game. I mean, I don't know how else to put it for Red Wings fans, for the Red Wings in general. It is a must-win game. If you lose this game, you're looking at a stretch across down the road here where you got to play Carolina, then Florida on the road, and then Tampa Bay on the road. All 3 of which are solidly in the playoffs. You got to win this game. And, I mean, hey, you already lost on the road to Nashville, which is not a great start to the road trip. But if you can win 3 out of the 5 games in this road trip, and specifically this game against the Capitals, you might be sitting in a much better spot going into the month of April, the final month of the regular season, mind you. And I think the addition of Dylan Larkin is going to help that for sure. I mean, obviously, they got better as soon as Dylan Larkin came back in a sense. I mean, they won 3 out of 4 before Dylan Larkin came back after that brutal loss to the Coyotes at home. So they were feeling pretty good. Then they lose to Nashville. You kind of lose a little bit of confidence in a 1-0 shutout loss, which was not very happy about that. I mean, like, when your goaltender gives up just 1 goal the whole game, it's like, how are you going to allow this to – how are you going to lose that game? That's just not good. So hopefully the offense comes back tonight here against Washington. I just saw it looks like there's going to be a Detroit power play here very early in the game, so maybe they could take advantage of that. So if I do get distracted in the middle of the show because of a goal or a big save or anything, that's what it is, because this is a big game for the Red Wings. And speaking of the Red Wings, I wanted to briefly talk about this because I don't know if I've really gotten the chance to talk about it amidst, the playoff run and other news in, the sports world. Lucas Raymond, who is Detroit's 2020 4th overall pick, that draft. He's got 60 points in 71 games played. He has not missed a game this year. Last year, obviously, he got injured. He missed, I want to say, roughly close to a month of game time. And this year, he has come alive in a contract year. And if I'm the Red Wings, I gotta, sign this man because he has been the definition of consistency. Even during that losing skid, he was probably the best offensive player we've had. And right now he leads the team in points with 60 points. Now, the only thing is if you're a fan of plus minus, he's a minus 17 player. So when he's on the ice, there's a lot of goals that are given up and not a lot that are scored. That might have more to do with the defense and the line that he's on and the goaltending. I don't typically look at plus minus, but he's right now on pace in his career to get to probably 200 points by next year, which would be absolutely insane. In just 4 years, you get to 200 points, let alone, he's already, he's 2 assists away from 100 assists. So he's just been a star is my whole point in going over this. He is a star. I think once you get to that 60-point marker in a single season, and especially for what age he's at, he's only 21 years old. You're a star in this league. Like you are, a big name for your team. And I think he's going to be a big part of whether or not this rebuild that Steve Yzerman has undergone. And we're coming up on 5 years. I think that's another thing I want to mention to Wings fans, because I've been seeing a lot of complacency of, he's got a plan. Just be patient. Guys, it's been 5 years. I mean, I get it. It was the worst situation ever. Terrible. We got screwed in the lottery multiple times. Understood. You got to make the playoffs. It's just sort of, you just have to do it. It's just the next hurdle, right? Like, you haven't had a winning season since like 2016, I think, because that was also the same year. It was also last year you made the playoffs. You have the second longest playoff drought in the NHL. The Detroit Red Wings, one of the most historic teams in all of hockey, to have the second longest playoff drought is unacceptable. Now, you got to end it here. And Derek Lalonde, if he does not manage to get this team into the playoffs, I've said it's like your job is on the line a little bit, because they were sitting pretty going into the month of March. And this collapse, I know that it sort of coincided with the Dylan Larkin injury, but you can't have that happen. You can't have one guy go down and then your whole team just collapse. So that's on coaching, but that's also on Steve Yzerman for roster construction. If your whole team falls apart because one player who, by the way, you didn't even draft was a product of Ken Holland, who, I guess, to be fair, you did extend last year. You gotta be able to have, like, for, however long you've been here with all these draft picks that you made, all this depth that we have. We have one of the top ranked among basically every publication. We have one of the top ranked prospect pools in all the NHL. But, Steve, we got 2 of your draft picks playing right now in the NHL. The rest of them are in the minor leagues or overseas or college hockey. Like, bring some of these guys up or something. I'm not saying you got to do it right now, but, these guys got to start being contributors. But at the very least, I have confidence that those guys will be contributors, just based on the fact that Lucas Raymond has been absolutely fantastic. Taken 4th overall. I believe he's like the top forward in his class too. So he's been fantastic. A great draft pick by Steve Yzerman, and obviously kudos to the development team for getting him ready to go. And he's been fantastic. Absolutely. So that's all I have to say on the Red Wings. Hopefully they can pull off a win here and get themselves back into that playoff spot with the win. So, and don't go into overtime, because I think if you go into overtime, they'll actually still be ahead. So you got to get the win in regulation. You got to just win it outright. But we got to talk about March Madness. So I'm going to pull up the bracket here really quickly. If I could actually just find the bracket itself, not my bracket. I feel like I'm stupid. Hold on. One moment. Live? Is that? There we go. Official bracket. Okay. So, I got a few things that I want to specifically go over. Namely things that affected my bracket. So my bracket, I'm currently in last place in my group that I made. Seth, who is not here, our co-host and our lovely San Diego, California representative, he's in first place. So at the very least, if you want to say there's some credibility for the show, it's in Seth. He seems to know a whole lot more than me, because I'm tied for last right now, which is, it's not great, Bob. It's not great. But I got a few things that I got to talk about. I want to start with MSU, because obviously I'm a Spartan fan, Michigan State. So we'll talk about MSU very briefly here. So Michigan State, they surprised the world. They surprised me. They absolutely clobber Mississippi State. 69-51 was the final score. Walker had a great game. I mean, if I can actually pull up the box here, let's see right here. No, I was like, where's Michigan State? You got to scroll a little down. Jaden Akins had a great game. 15 points, 3 for 8 from 3-point. Walker shot 50% from 3, 19 points. Even had some contributors from the bench, and Trey Holloman 2 for 3 from the field. Malik Hall had another great game, 50% from the field. And you're feeling good. You're like, okay, maybe we'll surprise the world. We went into the season ranked number 4 in the country. We never got back into the top 25 since getting out. But maybe this time, maybe we'll just go on a surprise run. And then immediately after, Michigan State pooped its pants and got absolutely clobbered by North Carolina. And I will say, the final score does indicate just how not close this game was. But if you would have tuned into this game for like the first 4 minutes, you would have thought Michigan State actually was going to go on a Final Four run, because they were up by upwards of double digits. I want to say they were up by 10 at one point. I don't remember exactly, but they were up by, I think it was, I heard some stat that it was like Michigan State was up 28 to, I don't think it was 10, but it might have been 10. It was like 28 to some number. And it was like first to 30 bets. And you're like, oh, easy. Michigan State is easily going to get to 31st. They did not get to 31st. They went completely, they just died. Like after they gave up that lead, when they had 28 points, they just died. They just completely fell apart. And I got to say, this is about as predictable as I could have imagined for Michigan State. And there's a lot of Spartan complacency, I will say. I'm very disappointed in a lot of my fellow Spartan fans, because all I see is, well, next year we'll do it right. Tom Izzo is our guy. And you know what? It's tough luck, but I'm just glad we made the tournament. And it stinks, but wait till you see Xavier Booker. Just wait till you see Cohen Carr as soon as he develops an actual jump shot. We can trust Tom Izzo. I mean, like, surely he's, developed players successfully in the relatively near past, right? Players like Marcus Bingham or Madi Sissoko or Gabe Malik Hall. Sometimes. Is Jaden Akins still is he gonna come back? Hopefully he comes back. My whole point in saying this is not to say that we have to fire Tom Izzo. That's not happening. First of all, I wouldn't support that, because I love Tom Izzo. Tom Izzo is the single greatest college basketball coach in Michigan State history. He's one of my personal favorite coaches in sports history. I love Tom Izzo. I want nothing more than for Tom Izzo to be successful and for him to win another national championship. But that is the standard for me. It is national championships. I've seen Final Fours. And frankly, I haven't seen a Final Four in a long enough time. I mean, haven't been to the Final Four since 2019. Tom, that's about half a decade ago at this point. And it's going to be over half a decade ago next year. That's how numbers work. So this is not like, we're not in this spot where I think people think like, oh, well, Tom has gotten us out of these holes before. It's like, we've had multiple seasons at this point where you think going into it, something good is going to come of it. And it just doesn't. Ever since Cassius Winston left, we haven't really had a true point guard. Like a true top of the line, all Big Ten, top player in NCAA. We haven't had that. Like we've had, we'd have Rocket Watts. I don't think he was a point guard. We've had, AJ Hogarth. I think AJ Hogarth was actually the next, like after Cash. I want to say that's actually accurate. So you had AJ Hogarth, who on one game you'd think he was, the next big thing. And another game you would wonder if he even played. And then you had Tyson Walker, who was a transfer, by the way. That's another problem that Izzo had this going into the season, is not looking at the transfer portal at all. And then you had, I guess you had Trey Holloman. I think he's a point guard. Like, who is this next big name? Is it Xavier Booker? he's a power forward. I mean, like, you need somebody to play the point, right? I mean, if you want to run the kind of offense, like he's always had, that sort of thing going, at least most recently, that has been where he's had the most success. And I don't know where this like kind of confidence that he's just going to figure it out comes from. I really don't know. And it's again, I love Tom Izzo. I want this team to succeed for his sake and for his legacy's sake, because I don't want him to be Mark D'Antonio. I don't want him to turn into, oh yeah, that MSU coach, it was real good, did a lot for Michigan State. And then those later years, he really set that program back. Like, are we gonna have to have like a Mel Tucker equivalent post Tom Izzo? Are we gonna have to have some basketball coach who, like, his first year he gets some crazy transfer and he's like the best player ever, he's the first overall pick or something, and then the next year we find out that he was having sex with someone he loves in the showers or something. I don't like. I'm just saying, like what I shouldn't even make that joke. This is terrible. Anyway, my whole point of monologuing about all this is Tom Izzo made a statement after the game that he was going to make a deep run or die trying. And I really hope by make a deep run he means win a national championship. Because frankly, again, I've seen the Final Four. I've seen it multiple times. I'd like to see a national championship again, please. That would be nice. The last national championship for a Big Ten team was that Big Ten team. Mateen Cleaves is not exactly a spring chicken anymore. But what I will say is, Tom, if your statement is I'm going to make a deep run or die trying, at this stage, I really hate to say this, you're probably going to die trying. Unless you really change, unless you hit the portal, unless you get rid of some of these, assistants, unless you really overhaul this roster going into next season. Good recruiting is great, and he still can recruit clearly. He can still get those high starred recruits to come in, and those guys can contribute if you allow them to develop, or if they just are contributors right out of the gate. That's the best case scenario. But we haven't even had that in a very long time. Like, the closest we've had is Xavier Booker. And Xavier Booker, I mean, he'd have games where, he'd play like 5 minutes and he'd make a three, and that was it. Tom Izzo said, you know what? You're done. Now watch as we blow like a 13-point lead or something. So, yeah. Michigan State's end is incredibly predictable, and yet it just seems that a lot of Spartan fans are just not – there's no sense of urgency. There's no sense of, hey, Tom, you got to figure it out. Like, if you don't figure it out, I don't want to force you to retire, but if you aren't going to change what you're doing, second-round exits, first-round exits, even Sweet 16 runs are not acceptable for Michigan State. They're just not. So, yeah. So, fun stuff from our wonderful Spartans. Meanwhile, I got a few other things to talk about March Madness. So, first one is bracket related, okay? BYU. What the heck was that? What in the heck was that, BYU? I believe, okay? I'm not Mormon, all right? I'm Catholic. I'm not a Mormon. I don't believe in Mormonism. I thought that maybe you would have a chance against Duquesne or Uconn, or I don't even know how to pronounce it. Duquesne. I thought maybe you had Mormon God on your side. Well, this just is evidence that Mormonism is false. Is because you lost to some team that I don't even know how to pronounce them. I don't know that anybody can identify where Duquesne is located on a map. And you managed to lose. I will never forgive the Mormons for this. They're very amicable people. They're very kind. I have no personal problems with any Mormons. Although, except for the ones that were playing for BYU. Those ones I have a problem with. And also the coach. I don't know if the coach is Mormon. I just assume that if you're at BYU, you're probably Mormon. Or at least like Mormon light. Right? Like you're like, yeah, I mean, I could be a Mormon. I can see that. Like you're probably in that camp. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'm making a gross judgment an oversimplification, as a talking head on the internet tends to do. But you lost to Uconn, and I will never forgive you for that. I will never forgive you until next year when I inevitably probably pick you in the first round because you'll probably be like a 6 or a 7 seed or something because the Mormons are just like decent at sports. It's really weird. Like they just always seem to have like pretty decent teams in football and basketball. I don't. Maybe Mormonism is true. I'll have to consider it. Certainly one piece of evidence. Anyway, the next thing I have to talk about. John Calipari needs to be sent to Guantanamo Bay. I mean, like, how? I just want to. I don't have words for how you lost to Oakland University. Now, a lot of you might be watching. If you're not from Michigan, if you're watching, you're probably thinking, oh, yeah, Oakland University, like Oakland, California. No, not that Oakland. No, Oakland University is located in Metro Detroit. I know people who've gone to Oakland. I have a buddy of mine who's going to be graduating from Oakland. It's not exactly a sports, mecca, right? There's not really a whole lot of hype for Oakland football or basketball. Michigan State plays Oakland basically every year, and every year Michigan State murders them by like 1,000. In fact, let me actually look that up. MSU Oakland. Let me just look that up. Basketball. So this year, December 18th, 2023, this year, they lost to Michigan State 79-62. This is the same Michigan State team that I have been railing against, and they destroyed Oakland. Okay? As soon as they enter the tournament, John Calipari in Kentucky, they say, you know what, coach, I don't want to play basketball. I've decided against it. And I'll just say this. John Calipari, he owes his soul to Anthony Davis. Because I don't think he wins a national championship without Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis has made this man's career. He's like every year this seems to happen. I mean, just a couple of years ago with St. Peter's. It's like, what? What is this nonsense? How are you losing to teams where people don't even know where they're at? I think there was an actual an actual Kentucky player who thought Oakland was from California, which is a fair assessment, I suppose, if you don't know anything. So, I mean, congrats to Oakland. Obviously, they end up losing in the round of 32 in an overtime thriller against NC State. But my goodness, John Calipari, if he doesn't lose his job over this, and it doesn't appear that he will, I feel like if he was going to get fired, it would have been, now. I really don't know what Kentucky is doing. Like, if this is the same thing in Michigan State. It's like, if this is the acceptable quality of basketball, losing in the first round to embarrassing teams. And I again, no disrespect to any of the players on Oakland. I'm sure they're some of the fine young men. All right. But you have lottery picks. You have potential number 1 overall picks on your team. And you lost to a glorified community college. It is the equivalent to your local high school losing to like the best junior high. And that's, I don't even know if that analogy is perfectly apt, to be honest. It's just Calipari. I don't know what he does. He constantly, because it's Kentucky, will constantly have these elite level talents. It's like at this point, I am just convinced Anthony Davis, you're the owner of Kentucky. He owes you his life. John Calipari, all the millions of dollars he's gotten, the lifetime contract that he's on, it's yours. It's yours, Anthony. You own it. Take it up. Leave the Lakers. You don't need to play anymore. You don't need to hurt yourself. Don't need to stress. You already won an NBA championship. You don't need to do anything else. You're already a surefire Hall of Famer, one of the best defenders ever. Just go ahead. Take your child, John Calipari, and go move to Alaska or something where nobody else is going to hear from you. Nobody even knows who John Calipari is in Alaska. So, the next thing I wanted to talk about very briefly here is I tried to warn you. Northwestern and James Madison, two teams who I said don't sleep on. Now, granted, Northwestern and James Madison both lose in the round of 32, but they did win their opening weeks. And it's funny that I warned you all about Northwestern and James Madison because I actually did not pick Northwestern to win that game. I don't even listen to my own advice. So I am to blame. Northwestern beats FAU. Obviously, FAU coming off of a Final Four season. Incredibly disappointing stuff for Florida Atlantic. And then James Madison, with a big upset, 12-5, beats Wisconsin. A team that I said, hey, I don't have a whole lot of trust in Wisconsin. You lose to Michigan, you lose all trust in my book. At least this year, Michigan. You lose all trust in my book if that's where you're at. So James Madison comes out with a win, and then they get blown out by Duke, and similar story with Northwestern. But it was fun while it lasted. All right, it was fun. Didn't everybody have fun? Everybody? Hello? Everybody? Guess not. Moving along to my next point here. Auburn. Similar deal to the BYU situation. You lost to a bunch of nerds? You lost to Yale in a sporting event? SEC, it just means more? Excuse me, the SEC is 5-6 in the tournament. I was told, and it was advertised to me by a myriad of people, the SEC is the best conference in college basketball. Really? You got teams losing to Yale? You got Mississippi State not showing up to work? Really? This is the best conference in college basketball? This reminds me of that one year, a couple of years back, when the Big Ten put the most teams in the tournament, and it was the Big Ten's the best conference. They're the best one. They brought the most teams. This is the year that a Big Ten team is going to win it all. And lo and behold, half of them get eliminated in the first round, mostly in embarrassing circumstances. It's the same thing. I just don't believe that there's really, truly a great conference. There's a lot of conferences with a lot of pretty good teams and a lot of conferences that'll put teams in consistently. The tournament is just so volatile. You're in a neutral site. You're playing a team you've probably never seen. I would imagine most Auburn fans have never watched a Yale basketball game in their life. And that'll probably be the first and the last Yale basketball game they'll watch. Now, to be fair, it was a close game, but you still lost to a bunch of nerds. And again, SEC, they go out, and at this point, I don't know how many SEC teams are even left. Let's actually take a look. Let's see. 1, 2, 2. You got 2 left. 2 out of I want to say like 10 or 11 or 12 that started the tournament. You got 2 that made the Sweet 16. And you didn't even get a banner for Sweet 16. You don't get anything. So, yeah, totally an embarrassment for the SEC, and you really just hate to see it. You just hate to see it. Meanwhile, just break down the Sweet 16 because there's just a couple of teams that I really think that are far and away the 2 best teams, and that's Uconn and Houston. I mean, Uconn beating Stetson 91-52, followed by beating Northwestern 75-58. Then you look at Houston beating Longwood 86-46, then putting up 100 points on Texas A&M. Not a blowout, but still a big win, 195 to Texas A&M. It's going to be that Houston Duke game is going to be the game to watch. That will be, I want to say, I'm not sure if I'll be able to watch those games, but those will be the games that I would follow. That game in particular. But you do have 2 former, I don't know what I'm trying to say. 2 former Final Four teams in San Diego State and Uconn playing. I want to say that was a national championship as well. I can't remember. I'm blanking on what the national championship was. I remember the Final Four, but I don't remember the national championship, which maybe that says something about my own memory. But you also have Illinois and Iowa State. That could be an interesting game. I think Tennessee, Creighton, Purdue, Gonzaga. I mean, the Sweet 16's got a lot of great matchups coming up, and I really I do think that we'll have something interesting. The most interesting team is going to be NC State. They're kind of the Cinderella story right now. They haven't lost a game since I don't know, since last year or something. They've just been on a run. So maybe they could be kind of fun to watch. They're taking on Marquette. But Sweet 16 is set, and I believe by next week, the Final Four will be set. Yeah, because the Elite Eight is Saturday and Sunday. So Final Four will be set by next week. So that's going to be fun. I'll say this. I've said it once, I'll say it again. March Madness is still one of the best postseasons of all sports. And I'm not a huge college basketball fan, but every year I just have a whole lot of fun with it. It's great following these games. It's great doing the brackets. It's a lot of fun. And if you've never watched any March Madness, just turn on a college basketball game. They're a whole lot of fun. It's unpredictable. You'll see random unathletic white dudes making threes, dropping bombs. It's all a lot of fun. So with that, we will move along to some more interesting stuff. And I think I'll start actually with some of the Lions news because this is actually rather serious. So I'll try to be serious in delivering this because it is a serious situation. And in so much as this can serve as some way to inform the public, which I don't know if you haven't heard of this story yet. You might be living under a rock. But Cam Sutton, warrant out for his arrest by the HCSO. That is the, I believe it's it's the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. I was in there. Cam Sutton, warrant out for his arrest. He is wanted for aggravated battery, domestic violence. They got his license plate. He's apparently on the run. And there's more drama to this. So obviously he was released by the team, maybe a day or so after. So, or that was when it was announced, I want to say. I don't know exactly the timeline here. But the storyline behind this, and there was a press conference with Rod Wood, the president of football operations for the Lions. And basically what had happened was he said that he learned about this essentially the same way everybody else, through the tweet from the sheriff's office down in Florida there. And they hear about it, and I want to say he went with, but the Lions security came because apparently Cam Sutton was in Allen Park. He was at the Lions training facilities, presumably working out or just hanging out. Maybe, I don't know. They don't really discuss what he was doing there. They go up to him and they say, "Hey, Cam, we just heard that you have a warrant out for your arrest. We just want to let you know you should, lawyer up and turn yourself in." And that was the last communication they've had from them. And that's apparently the last communication anybody's had with them. There was some weird interaction between Mike Tomlin, Pittsburgh Steelers head coach, obviously Cam Sutton, former Pittsburgh Steeler, who seemed like he communicated with him in some way to Cam Sutton, or maybe he reached out to him, or I don't know. But it's a really sad situation. Cam Sutton sort of lost a lot of the appeal of the fans the last couple of weeks because he was just getting burned by wide receivers left and right. He was a cornerback 2 playing a cornerback 1 role, so he's not exactly in the best spot. Excuse me. But it is just sort of the reality for him that he was never that great. He was never supposed to be that player. And now he's basically thrown his career away. I think he really could have been a contributor on this team, on this defense, playing that CB2, CB3 role. And so now the Lions are sort of in a bit of a bind where they're down a cornerback. So that changes a little bit of where they are in terms of how they're going to draft. I don't know that it's going to affect them too much, just knowing Brad Holmes. But I want to say Dan Campbell said that they will be active in the cornerback market. There's still guys like Stephon Gilmore out there. So we'll see if that's what they end up doing. Or what they end up doing in the draft and all that. So, yeah. With that, we'll move on to some more levity. Move into some of the offseason news. biggest news of the week in terms of movement, Titans make a move. They trade for L'Jarius Sneed. Huh? I don't know what the Titans are doing. Similar to the Steelers, I don't know what the plan is. They don't. I guess they really believe in Will Levis being their quarterback, but I don't. Maybe, but they go ahead and sign into a $76 million contract. They give up, I believe, just a third-round pick. Veterans being brought in exchange for a 2025 third-round pick and a 2024 seventh-round pick, or pick swap, excuse me. So they just switch where they pick in the seventh round. If you don't know what the word swap means. But yeah, so basically they get him for a third-round pick, and then they, extend him to, 4-year, $19 million a year, $55 million guaranteed. So a good move, I guess, by them. L'Jarius Sneed was the guy that I really wanted the Lions to go and get. I thought he was an excellent defender for Kansas City. Fortunately, he's no longer on the table. So I suppose the Titans defense gets better with him, but I just don't really get how far they think they are. I mean, obviously they just fired their head coach, so maybe they thought this new coach will bring in something different. They're going to be running, I'm assuming, with Will Levis. I don't know that Ryan Tannehill has got that job anymore. I guess maybe we'll see what happens with the draft, where they will be there. That was a great save by Alex Lyon, by the way. I almost just had a heart attack. But it's just I don't feel that confident in what the Titans are doing. I really don't. Maybe they trade up for a quarterback or something. I don't know, because I like that they got Tony Pollard, and I like Calvin. Like, I guess I don't know. It's kind of weird because I like the individual moves. I just don't know where they're at with the quarterback. So I don't know. Maybe the Titans will be a sneaky team next year, but as it stands, they trade for L'Jarius Sneed. Things. Stephen A., what do you think?
He's been waiting for a while. New Orleans has been waiting for a while.
Yeah, me too, buddy. Me too. So with that, we're going to move along to a couple of the new rules that have come out relatively. I want to say some of the stuff was officially voted on today, but a lot of the information about it has come out the last couple of days. So I want to talk about the three biggest ones. I want to say they're the only ones. I might be wrong on that. So the first one is the new challenge rule. We're going from order of most liked to least liked. So the new challenge rules are, oh my gosh, there's nothing behind me. Thank Monk's Eye. That's what he's referring to. It's quite the profile picture, by the way. But anyway, new challenge rule for the upcoming season. Basically, you can challenge. If you get it right, you get an extra challenge back. It's kind of cool. What's funny is the Lions were the ones who I think submitted this rule, or were super behind this rule. Ironically enough, because the Lions were absolutely putrid last year in challenges. I don't know if they got a single challenge right. I'm pretty sure, and I could be wrong on this. I'm pretty sure they got every challenge wrong, every single one. I remember every time doing those live watch along and play-by-play reaction streams that it was always just they're challenging. What are they? Okay, well, but I think it's kind of a cool rule. It's sort of similar to in baseball. In baseball, when you challenge, you don't lose your challenge. You keep it. I kind of like it because it gives more of an incentive to challenge as opposed to just sit and, because if you challenge, you might think, I might lose my challenge. In this case, you can basically keep it, but obviously you'll still use the timeout if you don't get it right. But it's kind of a cool rule, I guess. But yeah, I think it's pretty good. Next rule, though, is actually we'll reverse this because the next one I have on the list is actually the worst one, I think. Next one is this new kickoff rule. So I don't know why they want to change things that don't need to be changed. People there's not enough people returning it. It's well, teams are making a calculation, right? So there's no reason to just take the ball out if it's going into your end zone when you can guarantee 25 yards. So you can do all you want. Like it just doesn't make any sense why you would just like that's just how it is. It's like that you don't change like the I don't know, the punting rule because teams are always punt. It just doesn't make any sense to me why like they're doing the thing because it makes sense strategically. And to just sort of evaporate that with these new rules, I just am not a fan of. So basically, in case you're living under a bridge or under a rock, maybe you're living under a bridge. I don't know. People have all kinds of the internet is free, basically, practically. Anyway. So it's from the XFL, basically. So if you want to actually see it in practice, just look up XFL kickoffs. I'm sure they've become suddenly the most viewed highlights on XFL YouTube channels and such. But it was passed 29-3. So very well, a lot like teams were pretty much unanimous on this. But here we go. Kickers will continue to kick from the 35-yard line, but the other 10 players on the kickoff team will line up at the receiving team's 40-yard line. At least 9 members of the return team will line up in a setup zone between the 35 and 30-yard lines. Up to 2 returners can line up in the landing zone between the goal line and 20-yard line. No one other than the kicker and the returner can move until the ball hits the ground or hits a player inside the landing zone. Touchbacks will be marked at the 30-yard line, and no fair catches will be allowed. In the event a team wants to attempt an onside kick, it will have to inform the officials of its intent and would then be allowed to use the NFL's traditional formation. No surprise onside kicks will be allowed. And then further, I don't know if it states it in this ESPN article that I'm reading here, you can only onside kick in the fourth quarter. Why? Like, why do any of this? Like, you want to increase teams taking the ball out on a kickoff. I don't even know why. Like, what is the point? Like, are you suddenly going to get more kick returns because of this? Like, maybe. I don't know. Like, teams are, it's like, if I'm a kicking team, well, because the touchback is now at the 30-yard line, I believe, instead of the 25. If I'm the kicking team, well, shoot, I'm doing the same thing I'm doing before. I'm just going to launch the ball to the back of the end zone for a touchback. And then if it ends up where it's just sort of in the end zone or maybe at the 1-yard line, okay, well, like, try to get to the 30. You're probably not going to get there. There have been videos of like, oh, well, look, in the XFL, a lot of it's like, yeah, it's the XFL, man. I don't think it's going to play out the exact same way here in the NFL. And further, I think the most egregious thing is this just totally eliminates any level of strategy on either side. Right? You can't have those kind of squib kicks really anymore. You can't have the fake or the surprise onside kicks like you used to be able to do. And then on the other side of it, you can't, strategically choose to take the ball out, eat away a couple of seconds on the clock, and then allow your offense to try to close out the game. You can't just take the yardage that you can get or vice versa. Like it just forces you into one way of doing things, which is return the ball, essentially, or just let the kicker just send it back to the back of the end zone, and then you're just back where apparently we were at. I don't understand why they'll do this, where they'll just make this kind of a rule change, this kind of really big rule change. I mean, NFL kickoffs have been pretty much a staple, at least for most of my life, where, there have been a few rule changes, I want to say, maybe in some of the yardage or where the touchback is. But for the most part, the actual form of the kickoff has been pretty much the same. So I'm not a big fan of this. I'm willing to be won over. Maybe I'll be won over by the end of next season. But I really don't get how 29 out of the 32 teams are okay with this. I really don't. So I got nothing more. I don't. I'm not a fan of it. But the final thing that I'm really not a fan of is the banning of the hip drop tackle. Apparently, it'll also be a 15-yard penalty if you do engage in the hip drop tackle and an automatic first down. So I've seen a lot of highlights of the hip drop tackle, and I'm going to be honest. I'm not sure if I'm getting gaslit or if, like, the NFL is, like, that just looks like a tackle. I mean, is it dangerous? Maybe. I think tackling someone is pretty dangerous. Like what is the non-dangerous tackle exactly? Like, imagine for a second you were like, okay, what's the least dangerous tackle? I'm gonna go do that to my grandma. It's like there's no non-dangerous tackle, let alone a tackle in which you have 200, 300-pound football players bringing you to the ground. Like, it is dangerous, and there is going to be risk of injury. And this whole thing of like, oh, we're just trying to make the game safer. It's like, how does this make the game safer? Because you might have some less injuries from this particular. I don't know how many injuries came from this tackle. And even if you do, it's like, well, then what is the defense supposed to do? How are you supposed to play defense? What is the proper form of tackling? And practically speaking, how are you able to do that proper form of tackling in every single position, right? And that means when a guy is in front of you, when you're running to catch a guy, when a guy is on the run going side to side, right? Like, what is the right way to bring a guy down? Like, you hold on to him, and then, you might lose your footing, or, you might intentionally lose your footing to bring him down. And guys will get hurt. Guys always get hurt no matter how you tackle them. It's a dangerous game. That's why they get paid the big bucks. I mean, like, I'm not trying to sound crude, but it's a risky game, and they get paid millions of dollars to play it, especially at the skill position, especially with the quarterbacks and the running backs and the wide receivers. I know maybe some running back people are going to be like, oh, actually, the running backs aren't paid that much. It's like, look, and maybe not relative to other players, but if my contract for work said like $15 million over 3 years, yeah, I think I'd be okay. I think I can make do. All right, but anyway, I just overall these new rule changes, I'm just kind of bleh. Like the challenge rule is kind of cool, I guess. But I don't like the new kickoff. I don't like the hip drop ban. I don't know what they're trying to do. And I actually heard on a different sports show this morning is like, what if this is like a psyop where they're just gonna see how many things they can do to change football to see how they can get people to stop watching it. And I'm convinced at this point, short of like banning tackling outright, of just like making it two-hand touch, and even then, I'm not totally like I don't think it would have to not be football, basically. Like, you would have to turn it into something else. If it's football, if it's recognizably football with running and passing and kicking and all sorts of that, people are going to watch. NFL is just king. It's just like that. So, yeah, with that, we can move along to the final stretch of the show. So, MLB opening day is this Thursday. Very exciting. Super fun stuff. But we got to talk about some teams. So, first things first, I'm going to talk about the Tigers, where they're at. A couple of new additions on both sides of the pitching side and the hitting side. They're bringing Kenta Maeda and Jack Flaherty, as well as a few other guys in the bullpen. They bring back Andrew Chafin, who was a pitcher a couple of years ago. They bring him back, as well as a few other guys. Those are just the big names. But they also have the return of Casey Mize and a fully healthy Tarek Skubal, in theory. Obviously last year he played about a half a season due to the injury. But then Casey Mize is finally back. Former first overall pick. People forget about Casey Mize. And he looked pretty good in spring training. So hopefully he'll be able to take that and, have a kind of career revival, because he's just been ravaged with injury. And when he wasn't injured, he actually was pretty good in 2021. If you look at his numbers, he was like top 10 in rookie ERA, I want to say, in 2021. And then, he got hurt in 22, didn't pitch the whole rest of that year, and then didn't pitch all of last year. So look, that you're gonna have that in your pitching side. Obviously, you lose Eduardo Rodriguez, so you hope that Kenta Maeda and Jack Flaherty and Mize and Skubal and Reese Olson, hopefully that conglomerate makes up for the loss of Eduardo Rodriguez. New additions in the hitting side. You got Mark Canha, Gio Urshela, and then top prospect Colt Keith, who just got a massive extension. Will be a Tiger for the foreseeable future. They really believe in this guy as your second baseman every day. And my question is basically, are you satisfied with these moves? Because to be honest with you, I kind of wanted them to do a little bit more on the offensive side. Like, Mark Canha's a decent player. Gio Urshela is a decent player. And Colt Keith might be a decent player. I don't know. He could be a total bust. Like, I like that they paid him because it shows me that they have some level of confidence in him. Probably more so. They seem to have more. Apparently, they have more confidence in him than they do in guys like Green and Torkelson or Carpenter. But this offense last year was ranked 28th in basically every category. I think like overall it was 28th, but it was like bottom third in every single relevant category on offense. Like bottom third in OPS plus, bottom third in OPS, bottom third in batting average, bottom third in runs. Like it was name the offensive category, they were probably pretty bad. Like they were like top in strikeouts, low in like they weren't good offensively. And the offseason consisted of meh. And I'm not saying that there was any one guy that was like a complete revival, but we really don't have a third baseman. We have Matt Vierling and Zach McKinstry and things and Gio Urshela, I guess. Like I just don't feel all that confident. However, given the fact that this team is in the AL Central, maybe they surprise me. Like it's one of those things where it could go one of two ways. This could either be an incredibly disappointing season where they finish basically like 75 wins, 76 wins, that area, or they surprise a lot of people and they get 87 wins. Maybe they make the playoffs. Maybe they get to heck. Maybe they go crazy. They get 90 wins. They win the division, host a home playoff game in the wild card. Like that would be crazy. It would be awesome to see Comerica Park packed day in and day out, like it used to be back in, the 2010s and the early 2000s, or the late 2000s, I should say, not the early 2000s. It was bad. But late 2000s, early 2010s, that was when things were rocking in Comerica, and I'd love to get back to that. But I guess they're putting a lot of stock into young players taking that next step forward, and I don't mock that theory. I don't mock that strategy. I think it could work. But you're putting a lot of eggs in one basket. All right? If a guy goes down, if Colt Keith stinks, right? Like who's your backup? Zach McKinstry? He's not great. Andy Ibanez, I don't maybe I would have liked to see a few more moves on the offensive side of the ball. That's all. Maybe I'm totally wrong, and maybe they'll go out and go crazy. I think ceiling for this team is winning the division. I think the floor is finishing in like third place. So it's not great. Not a great outlook, but I want to move on to a couple of questions I have for some American League teams. So I did 3 for each just because I didn't want to go through every single team because I don't want to sit here for 4 hours. Just 3 random teams that I sort of thought of that I had questions about. So first one, are the Yankees just a disaster waiting to happen? I mean, like, obviously Garrett Cole is going to be down for 1 to 2 months. I don't know when that is retrograded to, but he's going to be down for at least the opening month of this season. Aaron Judge is an injury waiting to happen as far as I'm concerned. I mean, he's not getting any younger. He had obviously that career year where he broke the home run record, MVP season. Then they gave him the massive extension. They bring in Juan Soto, right? So Juan Soto is great. Juan Soto, they're going to have him for just this year, assuming they don't choose to extend him after this season. So they're kind of going all in. So it's not a great look to start, but I do think they're either going to be really, really good or absolutely like mockably like bad for the Yankees, I should say. Not like Oakland A's bad, not like 100 losses bad. Let's not go crazy. But like they could be like 80 some wins, maybe 90 wins, maybe they make the wild card and lose or something. Like I could see that. But I don't know. I can't say that I have a whole lot of trust in the Yankees right now. And maybe I'll be wrong. Speaking of bad, just how bad are the White Sox going to be? And I take great pleasure in this. I hate the White Sox. They're my least favorite team in Major League Baseball. I can't stand the White Sox. I hope they lose 162 games. I hope they go 0-162. That's what I would like. But realistically, obviously, they're going to win some games. And they start opening week against the Tigers. So this could be a very revealing opening series for me for both these teams, for both the White Sox and for the Tigers. Tigers go in and they sweep them. If they just destroy them, then either A, the White Sox are just that bad, or B, the Tigers are a team on the rise, ready to go. But I mean, obviously they lose Tim Anderson, they lose Dylan Cease, they lose everybody of worth, and they're probably going to sell off more pieces at the trade deadline. This team is a disaster. It's just an utter disaster, and I take great pleasure in it. I really do. I don't think they're. I think they're going to be at 100-loss team, probably in that range. As far as like historic, probably not that bad, but probably bad enough to where it's clear that they're like going to be looking at the draft lottery. So, with that, moving along to the Texas Rangers, obviously the reigning World Series champions. Can they get back? Obviously, they bring up Wyatt Langford, who was their draft pick last year. So they draft a guy out of college, and oh yeah, he's ready to play this year. What? That's crazy. And they're a World Series team. Like this Wyatt Langford cat is going to be a stud, apparently, or at least they seem to believe so. And obviously, they still got Seager, they still got Simeon, they still got Adolis, they still got Max Scherzer. They're going to have Jacob deGrom back. This is a team that could certainly get back to the World Series. And they didn't even win the division last year, I don't think. I think that was the Rangers or the Astros who won the division. Actually, I don't remember. I don't remember who won the division last year. Either way, I think the Rangers are here to stay. They certainly don't feel like a fluke team. They've been well built, well insulated with vets, with young talent, with great development. So things are looking good for the Texas Rangers. And I would be scared of them if I was an American League West team. And I'm scared of them, and I'm not even an American League West fan. So moving along to the NL. I realize that all these are related to NL West teams. I apologize to any other NL teams. I just either don't care about you or don't have a question about you. First one is, are the Padres going to bounce back, or are they just going to go back to being mid? It's kind of weird. They lose Juan Soto, but they bring in Dylan Cease, and they lose Blake Snell to the Giants. So I don't know. It's like, are they just going to finally put it together this year? They have a new manager, I believe. I want to believe in the Padres. For Seth's sake, for our good friend Seth, we need him to have a fun summer, have a good baseball team to follow, get into it, have some fun. And I just don't want them to be like last year. I really don't, but I just got a feeling they will be. Like, not so bad that you just, like, completely turn them off, but, like, bad enough to where you're just like, I got nothing. I can't feel anything towards this team. So, yeah, I'm don't know. I'm willing to say that they'll probably just end up being mid, but I'll be rooting for them to have a bounce back and get into playoff contention or even division contention, which we'll get into that, because the very next team I got to talk about is the Dodgers, and they're just World Series or bust, right? I mean, like, there's no getting around it. You bring in Ohtani, you bring in Yamamoto, you bring in the ghost of Babe Ruth, you bring in Jackie Robinson's ghost, you bring in every single great baseball player ever. And yeah, it's World Series or bust. I'm sorry. Like, first of all, your 2020 World Series, already a huge asterisk on that. Now, I'm not saying you need to apologize for it. Don't apologize for it. It's a World Series title. It looks the same. All the World Series trophies look the same in a case, regardless of how many games you were played. But I think they do want that legitimizing World Series trophy. I think they do. it's similar to me in a weird way because these teams are kind of rivals. It's similar to me to the Astros, where 2017 was totally, marred by the cheating and science, all that stuff, and just becoming the villains. And then they go out and they win a World Series in 2022. So I think this is something where they want to just get over that hump again. They can't lose in the division round to a division opponent again. They just can't. It's funny because they've done it to every single division. They did it to the Giants. They lose to the Giants. Then they lose to the Padres, and then last year they lose to the Diamondbacks. It's like you can't do this again. You just can't. It can't keep happening. It just can't. Don't let it happen, please. Actually, did they lose to the Padres? Or I know they lost to the Padres. Did they lose to the Giants? Actually, I don't think they did lose to the Giants. I think right. Either way, they lost to the Padres, and they definitely lost to the Diamondbacks. If you could not lose to your divisional opponent, just make the World Series. For Shohei's sake, I want them to be playing meaningful games in October. So don't just be completely terrible, which I don't think is going to happen, but actually make the World Series. Because if they do, I don't know if I'll be rooting for them it depends on who they're playing, but it'll be hard not to feel good for Shohei if he can win a World Series in an actual Los Angeles team, playing for an actual baseball team that actually cares. How many times can I say actually and more in the next 30 seconds? Actually, we're going to move on to the next team, which is the Diamondbacks, another NL West team, because very young team, make the World Series last year, pretty much a darling team. I really like the Diamondbacks. They go out, they get Eduardo Rodriguez, who, we'll see if he can, if he can have a similar season to that he had last year, where he was one of the best pitchers in the American League. I would know. He played for the Tigers. I think he's certainly going to be a well addition to that team. But I hope they're just not a flash in the pan. I really don't think they are. I like Jackson Merrill. Merrill Kelly. Who is Jackson Merrill? I don't know what. I just had a moment where I just made up a player. Meanwhile, the Red Wings just went down 1-0 early in the second period, so that's fantastic. But why did I think of Merrill Kelly? They have Merrill Kelly. They have Corbin Carroll. They have oh my gosh, what is his name? I can't think of some of the names of the guys, but they have guys, right? They have a lot of players. They have the pedigree, I think, to make the World Series again. So I hope that they're not a flash in the pan team. Certainly will be rooting for them out in the NL West. And with that, we're going to wrap up the show. That's pretty much all I got to say. So obviously a very exciting week next week. We'll have a lot to break down. We'll have actual baseball to break down, and yeah, we'll be able to do that. It's Easter weekend, so I hope everybody has a happy Easter. Great holiday. Celebrating the resurrection of Christ. So, if you're a believer, happy Easter. If you're not, I don't know, figure it out, man. Appreciate everybody for stopping by. Appreciate you all for watching. And with that, I'll see you guys next week. We'll review all the sporting news of the week, and we'll break it down. So have a great night, everybody, and happy Easter week, or have a great Easter weekend. See you later, everybody. Have a good night. Yeah.